Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak at the first ever online ESHRE Congress. And thank you to my Fertility Europe colleagues for trusting me with this challenging subject, infertility, the political treatment. I declare that I have no conflicts of interest. Quick word about myself. I have been fertility patient since 2000. It did not quite finish, not for medical reason, but I will come back to it later if that's okay. I am volunteer for Polish Infertility Patient Association, and I work for Fertility Europe. Quick, the silent hero of 2020 is COVID-19. So I could not avoid mentioning it here. It has shaken many patients' lives and many plans of treatment. But what was really striking for me was how the feeling of losing control of my life was similar to the vulnerability of the infertility. What you have all experienced in the last months when you have lost control of your lives, this is what infertility feels like. No planning, no empowerment, no guarantee. Plans on hold, life on hold, enters the uncertainty. My colleagues from Fertility Europe and our guests have been talking about the issue of unequal access to infertility treatment for at least 11 years on many occasions in many venues and countries, many of them courtesy of ESHRE Congress patient session, but also as part of our international discussions during members' spring meeting and during European Fertility Week, our annual education and advocacy event. Many of the presentations and themes were coming down to the issues arising from the legal regulations, often arising from the regulations that were restricting access to fertility treatment of the patients for non-medical reasons, often from policymakers not considering the definition of WHO for infertility being a disease, and ignoring European Parliament recommendation from 2008 that everyone should have a right to try to have a child. So part of the European Fertility Week 2018 and 19 was creating this pledge, call to action, to be signed and supported by the politicians and decision makers, MEPs, national MPs, as well as organizations like ESHRE, who have a good voice to change things in Europe. As you can see, the first three are all about the access, to recognize the right to try and have a baby as a universal right in the European Union, ensure equal, fair, and safe access to treatment, and provide funding for it, public funding for it, as the access will never be equal or fair without it. The other two are about the education, as having the right information at the right time can make all the difference. Our European Fertility Week started from calling to break the silence, to finish stigma, to fight myths about infertility for 25 million people experiencing infertility in EU. And then we moved on to addressing issues of access, 40 reasons why fertility and infertility should be more in the center of attention in Europe. Happy birthday, to notice various groups who would like to celebrate happy birthdays, but their access to treatment is dependent on where they live. All within the same Europe, often within the same European Union. And last year's European Fertility Week 2019, we decided to address the problem of fertility education, or rather lack of it. People in many countries do not have good access to treatment, but neither they get the education to know about fertility and the risks of infertility. Look at the answers to the quiz, which was part of the European Fertility Week. Chance of getting pregnant at the age of 42 is much smaller than people think. The average success rate of IVF treatment is also much lower than people expect. And when does the woman's fertility start to decline? Again, much earlier than people think. And it's worth noting that the test was distributed by us and our members in our networks. So it may be filled by the people who had to find out more about fertility and infertility than they actually wanted, in a hard, very personal way. So my guess would be that the results are even less accurate in different groups. A group of fertility education experts got together to develop this global fertility education campaign. This poster campaign aims to increase awareness of the need for fertility education. This poster was launched during our meeting in the European Parliament during European Fertility Week last year to advocate for fertility education at all schools in European Union. It was great to be working with all the fantastic dedicated educators, and especially Professor Joyce Harper, who is real engine of this project. Let me share with you the video that we made for the policymakers. There was also a video made for teenagers and aimed at young people in the age for having children. And all the videos were translated by our members into many languages to use as an advocacy tool in their own countries. We need to educate those that are responsible for education, as well as the public. Fertility Europe has over 20 member associations from various European countries, and we regularly discuss the difference in regulations and what challenges each country meets. However, thanks to this paper by ESHRE's European IVF Monitoring Consortium, we can see the full range of regulations in Europe. Most countries have specific legislation on art, with exceptions of Albania, Bosnia and Herzegovina, the Federation, Ireland, Romania, and Ukraine. Only accessibility is legally restricted to heterosexual couples in 11 countries: Albania, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Czech Republic, France, Italy, Lithuania, Poland, Slovakia, Slovenia, Switzerland, and Turkey. Only 30 of 43 countries listed in this paper offer treatments to single women, and only 18 to female couples. Use of donated sperm is allowed in the majority of the countries except Bosnia and Herzegovina and Turkey. Egg donation is not permitted in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Germany, Switzerland, and Turkey. Strict anonymity of donors is the rule in 18 countries. In 15 countries, surrogacy is either allowed or performed in the absence of specific legislation. For surrogacy. This information is important, very important. Which of the arrangements are fair to all the stakeholders? The patients, the children, their siblings, and the donors. We see the regulation changes coming in some of the countries. A few weeks ago, egg donation got allowed in Norway after many years of fight. Finland not only banned anonymous donation years ago, but now supporting Infertility Patient Association to run a 3-year project to create information campaign how to support the families with donor children. In France, single women and lesbian couples got access passed in the parliament. That is still a way to go in legislative way, but step in the right direction. Discussion about banning anonymous donation in Spain is amazing news, considering that Spain is one of the favorite destinations for egg donation. Surrogacy regulation in Portugal. It's on hold because the law was designed with several important flaws, but again, at least it's being discussed. Portugal also banned the anonymous donation, and thanks to the joint voice of patients and the doctors together, they managed to run it through the way that didn't even see the dip in the amounts of donors. In Israel, the right to surrogacy got extended to single men and gay couple. In Serbia, donation bank got created, so there is a chance that the law will actually be able to start working. But unfortunately, we have far more of the bad news. So many associations worry about cutting funding for treatment now after pandemic. And it's a great role of you medical people, of clinics, to work together with patients, to actually work together to be able to find a way of not reducing the availability of the treatments, like the Netherlands managed to do it a few years ago. There's still no reimbursement in Poland, Switzerland, and Ireland. There is forced embryo donation, Poland and Malta. In Poland, after 20 years of storing embryos, and in Malta, when the female patient turns 48, and they're not being asked if they would like to donate their embryos. It just happens. There's German compromise, the practice to fertilize and cultivate as many oocytes as needed to attain exactly the number of embryos planned to be transferred, which is legally maximum of 3. It is pretty much confirmed that the strict rule of 3 is suspended at the moment, so clinics use it. However, the German compromise, the clinics can work within this existing legal framework. However, further clarity and legal regulations are needed so the patients get the confidence to use it. The Law 40, still in place in Italy. Patients achieve changes in their rights and in practice by battling in courts and winning, but law still unchanged. Excluding single women and same-sex couples. As I said, only 30 or 43 countries in Europe offer treatment to single women and 18 to female couples. And again, Poland not only bans the access for them, but even bans the right to transfer the embryos created before the 2015 law. And strict anonymity of donors is the rule in 18 countries, despite recommendation of Council of Europe from 2019. Ireland, no law, no art law still passed. Romania, still no art law. Political attempts to change art law is great worry of patients in Croatia, who had to fight for 3 years to make their 2009 art law more liberal, even though it's still rather strict, to fertilize more embryos and freeze them. And Polish patients and doctors are afraid to advocate for necessary changes in art law, worrying that it may encourage the politicians who regularly try to restrict it. And most countries prefer to pretend that surrogacy does not exist. So no safe regulations needed, and patients have to go to the countries that allow often commercial surrogacy. And the patients often compromise safety of their children, as was demonstrated well during the lockdown when parents could not travel to pick up their newborn children. They risk also participating in exploitation of donors and surrogates. This list could really go on. Now, many of the restrictions in access are caused by very conservative and non-scientifically founded ideas of natural. European Parliamentary Forum for Sexual and Reproductive Rights published a paper in 2018, Restoring Natural Order, the religious extremist vision to mobilize European societies against human rights on sexuality and reproduction, about a group of strategically organized in the European region. This organization has managed to forge consensus among all conservative, traditionalist Christian actors across Europe. They call themselves Agenda Europe, and they advocate to restore the natural order. Restoring the natural order explicitly claims that it is not based on religious belief, but rather on natural law. There is a natural law which human reason can discern and understand, but which human will not alter. So Agenda Europe is struggling with the problem that contemporary society wants sex without procreation and procreation without sex. We can see the rhetoric as in many countries of Europe, Spain, Poland, Croatia, France, Slovakia, Slovenia, when discussing art law and access to treatment by LGBT or single women. The political parties inspired by this thinking are mostly minority parties, but if they're part of coalition in any country, they can influence the political process and the tone of discussion for long years. We had an example of that in Norway, where one small party, which was part of the governing coalition, was blocking the law changes allowing egg donation. And they all use language that can appeal to people without the benefit of fertility education, where embryos become unborn children or frozen children, where single women families and LGBT families are against natural order, and surrogacy becomes selling babies. And this movement is behind new drafts of regulations. There's some photos from Paris, Madrid, and Warsaw, some supporting the natural order. And the one from Warsaw is actually when women pushed back. And as more and more infertility patients association in European countries realize that our access to treatment rights are part of the same sexual and reproductive rights, we begin to work together with organizations that battle for access to contraception, abortion, LGBT equal rights. And they want to work with us as they realize that access to infertility treatment is all part of the same battle, the same equality. And because we are patients, we are also working as part of European Patients Forum, organization that is an umbrella that works with patients groups in public health and health advocacy across Europe. And we make every effort to be part of the networks where patients can be in the center, where they can be listened and their needs can be followed. Because you see, the needs of the patients are not recognized. If the needs of the patients are not recognized and followed, it pushes them away from their countries, from their medical system. That is, if they can afford it. But that may be also taking a risk with their health or health of their children. They may be compromising their judgment going for treatment in the countries with less ethical regulations. Don't get me wrong, if traveling for any health treatment is patient's choice, it is fine. But not if they have to do it because their policymakers restrict their access for non-medical and non-safety reasons. So back to my story in political treatment. When I had my IVF in 2003, there were no art regulations in Poland. We were lucky that from this one cycle, we had 2 boys. Now we have all the children we want, but we have some remaining embryos that we would like to donate to science. But then comes year 2015 with the Polish art law, which states that our embryos will need to be donated to another couple after 20 years. And no one is going to ask us if we agree. Nobody is asking if we want to donate. If we agree that biological siblings of our sons are going to be born to a different family, nobody asks them either. The policymakers decided to protect rights of the embryos to be transferred, rather than the rights of the patients and the patient's children to decide what to do about their genetic material. This is violating patients' rights. This is against the rules of donation, which should be voluntary. And because of the language of Polish debate about infertility treatment and constant worry that the politicians may make the art law more restrictive, it is almost impossible to advocate for patients' right to destroy the remaining embryos or to donate them to science. This is political treatment of fertility at its worst. But there are ways to make political treatment of fertility good. Policymakers need to recognize that this is their obligation to create regulations providing access to equal, safe, and efficient treatment, and universal fertility education, and recognize the needs of patients going through the infertility treatment in the employment regulations. We would like also to see a good practice of recognizing patients' association as partners in creating a legal framework. That would mean providing published funding for sustainable planning of their activities. What is needed? We need further research and study. We need to know the actual needs of the patients and follow those needs. And we need to talk and exchange ideas to provide legal solutions that are ethical, evidence-based, and patient-focused. We together, doctors, nurses, scientists, together with Patients Association, need each other. We need each other to educate the public and policymakers about our needs and make them understand. I am finishing with the question marks because we would like to ask and listen to our responses and also to show you that we are listening to you. Thank you.